there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair.
Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dog passed away, get the sound of a shotgun shell.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. Skeletons covering the mountainside. A treacherous reality in the pines.
Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't match the cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise. All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be
Hello, everybody. How are you? Welcome to the show. Sorry, we are running late this evening. Man, I have worked all day on a rabbit hole. Hi there, Mommy. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm blessed and highly favored.
Oh, yes, me too. Blessed and highly favored. I love that. Highly favored.
Amen. Well, I've been working. I went down a rabbit hole. So one of our hillbillies sent me a message on one of my communication things, and they said, hi, I follow you, and they said, I wanted to make sure that you knew about this resource. And she sent me a link and to this website, and I had absolutely no clue that this website even existed. I had no idea. And so look here. It's called the Medicaid. Well, I don't know if that's what it's called. Let's see. See if I can get back to the front. We'll go back to the, well, it's called the Medicaid provider. Well, there it says spending. Open sourced Medicaid data set. Now, this is through, I don't even know who it's through. Who's it through? The Kentucky State Gov or Kentucky.gov, I guess. But anyway, whatever it is. It will tell you everything that you need to know or that you want to know when it comes to billing, Medicaid providers, how much they've billed Medicaid, how much Medicaid money has been paid out, reimbursed. Oh, honey, I've went down the rabbit hole. And what I did was I thought that I needed to look at Letcher County. So that was basically where I was focusing, most of my mind. But, the companies that we're talking about here are like our ARC, right? That's who I first looked up, was ARC, because that's who came to my mind. But then I thought, well, who else does it? Who else was in this pipeline? Well, all right, we're getting ready to tell you. So let me go ahead and take it back out. Welcome back. Welcome back to Hillbilly Crime, y'all, where the truth don't hide long. No, it don't. And the numbers sure do not lie. My name is Elizabeth. I am your friendly hillbilly host, your hillbilly investigator, your porch swing truth teller. And tonight, we are digging into something that's been sitting in plain sight, apparently, for years. People just don't know how to find this stuff. Nobody really knew how to investigate any of this because it wasn't our job, right? This kind of stuff was the Fed's job. This is the FBI's job. It's a forensic accountant's job. But since we don't have anybody to do their job, we're going to do it. All right. Now, before we get into the thick of it, let me bring in the one, the only, the Appalachian legend herself, Sweet Tater. Come on in here, Mommy.
Well, I don't know about being no legend.
I built you up real good there, didn't I?
You sure did. Well, it's nice to see you.
I've missed
And
you.
it'll be interesting to talk about some of that stuff. Yeah, I've been going to sleep because I've been going to Callan and I had such a great time.
Well, now today
Lots of new people I knew.
was today the last day.
Yeah, I was glad.
Yeah. Well, how did you enjoy your week?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic.
Any takeaways that you'd like to share?
Well, no, not right now. I got to let them jail in my head a while. Oh, you mean like songs?
Oh, well, yeah, sure. If you want to sing a song, you sure can.
Well,
Maybe
I
right in it.
might. We sang a whole bunch.
Well, you plan.
Yeah, maybe I'll sing when we sing.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, okay. So grab your sweet tea, grab your common sense. That cat's going to grab a table here in a second. And grab your seatbelt. Because tonight's going to be a bumpy ride. Now, chat, let me see who all is in here tonight. I know it's a little late. We're getting started late. I'm so sorry. But that's okay. It's okay. It's just the way that it is. All right, Philip, hello. Now, Mommy, you're doing your show tomorrow, right?
No, that's Sunday.
Or Sunday. I'm sorry, Sunday.
Yes.
Yes, and I think Philip is
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, Philip's supposed to come.
Yes. So we are very excited. Now Philip is one of our show staples. He's followed us for a long, 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 long time. And, he's always number one in our chat, just about it. First one in there every night. And so we love Philip. Thank you so much for all your support. And he's going to go play on radio with Mommy on Sunday. So we are all looking forward to that. And I'll make sure that I put a link to Mommy's show. I'll post it on the YouTube posts. And then I'll also put it on Facebook and stuff. So make sure that you go listen to that on Sunday. All right. So now, let's see. All right. So tonight we are going to talk about something that didn't come from no whistleblower. It didn't come from a leaked document either. It didn't come from a courthouse hallway whisper. It came from the numbers. It came from the cold, quiet, honest, and louder than anything else we've seen so far. Okay? Numbers don't lie. People do. And when you look at the Medicaid billing data for our county, something jumps out. Something very big. Something that starts in early 2019. Okay? And once you see it, you sure cannot unsee it. Now, let me see if I pull it up onto the image this way. If you'll be able to see it as good. Yeah, you guys can see that real good, can't you, Mommy?
Yes.
All right. Now, this is the monthly reimbursements. I just screenshotted this right off of the website. It's off of the same Medicaid data tracking system that we were just looking at. All right. And if you look down at the bottom, it kind of gives you the key. It gives you the peer support specialists. Now, any of you all that are familiar with addiction, a peer support specialist was something kind of new in the last several years. I was there when they first started pushing it, trying to get them to be billable. They ARC had come in hot and heavy, and you had them trying to push into the court systems. You had them pushing into the communities. And everybody was coming to partner with them. Everybody was through SOAR, because that was around the same time period that you had Shaping Our Appalachian Region. Remember SOAR? They showed everybody how to partner up and get all of that grant money. Well, with Tim Robinson, he is on all of these boards. He's the founder of ARC, and the Medicaid comes into the treatment. It is all very, very organized. And what am I always talking about? Organized crime. All right, so let's set the background for this. What changed in 2019? So let me give y'all the quick backstory so nobody gets lost. We pulled the Medicaid billing history for 4 different places in Letcher County, and all 4 suddenly started billing the same behavioral health codes at the same time. Now, these aren't regular doctor visit codes. These are the ones that are all tied to the drug court, CPS, probation, therapy requirements, the wraparound services, peer support, case management, drug testing, crisis intervention. You know, these are all certain codes, and you know, it's next to impossible. It's next to impossible to mess this up. I had several people that work in billing and coding. Whenever we first started talking about this a little bit, like last year, I just referenced it some. I had absolutely no idea what I was talking about when it comes to coding, you know, how a doctor's office would, how would they even commit fraud today? Like, I don't know. I've never taken any classes or worked in any of that, so I don't know. So, but several people that have reached out to me and said that, you know, they only go by what the doctors and the nurses give them. So if it was messed up, it wasn't messed up by the coders. It wasn't messed up by the billing department. It was messed up on, you know, the office side. You know, they only get what they send them. That's what they said to me. And that stuck out. You know, these are supervision codes. These are compliance codes, right? And the timing, early 2019, like somebody flipped a switch, honey. And 4 different places all changing at the same time. That's a little suspicious to me. Let me grab this other one. Now, one of them, see that one? And then see here? Here's a different one. This is for a different provider. But do you see how the numbers, or how the colors, you've got that purple that comes in, and it in the background, but that orange is your I can't even see without my glasses. But I can't read that part. I've got it
Self-care management training, isn't it?
I can't read, but I've got it all written down right here. So let me get back to my script and it'll tell us.
Okay.
So 4 different places, all changing at the same time. It just doesn't sit right. So it's not natural, is what I mean. It's a system coming online is what it was. And you can look at these patterns, and you can look at all of these diagrams together. You can kind of lay them side by side, and you can see the same patterns across all the providers, all 4 providers. MCHC, they were the metal. So these providers all served a purpose, the same purpose, just in different ways. So MCHC, the Mountain Comprehensive Health Care, the one in Whitesburg, they were the medical and testing gatekeeper. They were a gatekeeper. MCHC is the front door. So if you are in drug court, if you're on probation, if you are under a case with CPS or any supervised program, you start here. Now they bill H0002, drug and alcohol screening. H0031, that's mental health assessment. H0032, treatment plan. So that's your case management. Drug testing, tox panels, therapy, case management. This is the intake and compliance arm. This is where the paper trail begins, okay? And once you're in the system, you ain't getting out anytime soon. Now, the rehab and the revival arm of this whole thing is the public face, or it was the public face. You had the revivals, you had the testimonies, you had the big church sermons, you had the big fancy suits and the pretty hats and all the high heels and the fancy dresses. You had the ceremonies, second chance branding. But the billing tells the truth. The billing tells the real story. They bill H2027, psychoeducation counseling. They bill halfway house codes, detox codes, peer support, SB 90 liaison. So this is the rehab and recovery arm and the money engine. Now they sure know how to market it, right? Off the backs of addicts through preachers. Come to save and redeem, honey. MCCC, who's been in the news a whole bunch lately. They've got 5 lawsuits, 5 victims suing them. Now they have been the counseling and the court. They've been connected with the counseling and the court. Now, I don't know if MCHC, not MCHC, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I don't know if MCCC, the same people that were in Judge Mullins' office the day of the shooting, that Eisen fella, I don't know if the same mental health provider, if it was like the same bunch that he was under, that's the bunch that's getting sued. I don't know. I do not know that part. But what we have found is that MCCC, that's connected to all of this, they are the counseling and the court contract arm. MCCC handles the mental health side of the pipeline. So if it's the same MCCC that's now got 5 lawsuits hanging over their heads for improper billing, retaliation, they've been allegedly they've been firing people who refused to play ball and go along with the money train. They bill H0004 therapy, H0031, 0032 assessments, treatment plans, trainings, more wraparound services. So this is the case management. This is the counseling in the jail contract arm. Now we move on to the health department. The local health department, that's who we're talking about. They've also picked up these wraparound and home-based, they're the wraparound and home-based arm. But this is the one that nobody really expected. I know I sure didn't expect it. I did not expect our local health department to be bringing in as much or more Medicaid money in treatment services. We're talking about drug treatment services. Big numbers, y'all. Really, really, really big numbers. A county health department, a public agency, suddenly became a massive behavioral health provider. And then a whole list of codes that they also used. I pulled it all. I pulled all the receipts. This is the home-based community level supervision arm. Let me go ahead and pull that one down. And I'll, oops, maybe show it this way. Can you see that? Okay, maybe this will be easier to do it this way. All right, so full timeline of the MCHC addiction billing. So let's just move on to the MCHC. That's Mountain Comp in Whitesburg right here. So the integrating of MCHC, ARC, MCCC, and the health department. I kind of pulled everything on here. We've got the court system, MCHC, there it has kind of tells what they are there. The Medicaid billing and payment. Reimbursements flow through each of these entities. They peak in 2022 and 2023, 77 million plus health or in the health department alone, just from our local health department alone. And then all of those numbers start declining in 2024 under audit pressure. So the interpretation of all of the data, all four entities bill the same behavioral health code. So they're all four doing the same thing. Each plays a different role in the pipeline, though. The 2019 spike marks the activation of the system. The 2022-2023 peak shows maximum utilization, meaning that they were using it a lot. The 2024 decline, excuse me, signals oversight and that they pulled back contraction. Now this one, I think, was the one that I actually meant to go back to. Okay. So this is the full timeline. 2018. This timeline shows when MCHC's addiction-related billing surged, when codes were active, and how the pattern lines up with drug court, house arrest, and the county events. So in 2018 was the foundation year. What do you guys remember me saying also happened in 2018 that was pivotal to everybody getting in those places that they needed to be for all of this to have blown up the way that it did? It was the election. The local election of 2018 is what happened. All right. Keep that in mind as we go forward. So in 2018, these were the codes that were activated in that time that they started billing Medicaid then for drug and alcohol screening, mental health assessments, the treatment plans, drug testing, therapy, and case management. And then the pattern, it was low but steady volume. Addiction services were already in place at that time. Drug testing begins early and consistently. Now, that's going to be the biggest part of this whole thing is the drug testing, okay? We've got a bombshell tonight. We have a bombshell to drop that nobody, I've not seen it nowhere else. You're going to see it here. You're going to hear it here. All right. The interpretation of this. MCHC was already functioning as a behavioral health hub before the flood, before ARC's expansion, and before MCCC took over. In 2019, the growth, and this is when their growth and the court got integrated, okay? What changes? Well, the drug testing volume increased dramatically, which would be expected as MAT treatment became much more funded, I guess, and supported. So I would expect to see some, right? But the drug testing increases. Therapy codes begin climbing. Them codes are getting used more and more. Alan, that baby got out again. I sure hope they don't get hurt out there. They've learned how to escape. And so I'm a nervous wreck until I can get a top on it. All right. So case management also starts becoming much more frequent because what, if you all remember what else happened around that time? That's when the peer supports also became billable. That's when ARC was pushing peer support specialists like crazy. But you were very, very, the peer supports were, especially at the beginning, they were very few and far between. Like I know down here in Whitesburg, they had one, only one, and they were using that one for like every single one of their resources. So if the health department needed a peer support, they only had one working in the entire area because they were just too greedy and stingy to hire anybody else. Think about how they put all of that into place too. They start pushing, lobbying for it to be a billable position, a billable thing, because you have to get certified. You have to go take a training class for that. Well, they turned it into a $600 price tag on the certification. What newly sober addict do you know that has $600 that can just go pay for this training? Not very many. So how it ended up happening was these places like ARC would hire somebody. They hire like one person and they're going to pay them $12 an hour, but then they're going to bill. How much are they billing? I naively said the last time we talked about this, maybe $30 per 15 minute. If I didn't mistake it, when I saw that during my research, they were billing 100. It allegedly, let me say allegedly, because I could have gotten this wrong, but man, I'm pretty sure I saw it right. $180 per 15 minutes. Well, hopefully we'll be able to confirm that with this. So let me get back to this. The interpretation of all of this. So this is the year that MCHC becomes more deeply tied into the drug court, the probation, the MAT programs, court-ordered treatment, and the pipeline started forming then. Okay, it started forming back then. 2020 came, and that was the COVID year. That was the year that COVID changed everything. That was the year of house arrest. That was the year that they started using house arrest to try to get people out of the jails, right? But billing doesn't drop. That's very unusual. Therapy volume stays high. Drug testing continues despite lockdowns. Case management spikes, which that would be okay to me. I would even accept that, because during COVID, I would expect maybe more mental health. But why would your drug testing increase or stay high? Why would your therapy needs like that be so high? It's just a question. So my interpretation, even when the world shut down, the court clinic pipeline here in eastern Kentucky in Letcher County was moving on. This is a major red flag. Drug testing should have dropped sharply during the lockdowns, but it didn't. That's very that just seems like waste to me. That's waste, fraud, and abuse is what we're talking about here. 2021 was the build-up year. So what grows during 2021? You've got drug tests, screenings, assessments, case management, therapy sessions. Why? Well, what was happening in 2021? You got Michael Clark down there in the courtroom. You've got the judges signing orders. Rehab, house arrest, rehab. Oh, yeah. You had all that funding. You had all that money that was just pouring in. They were going to take advantage of it. All right. So the interpretation, this is the year that the system ramps up. All right. The numbers begin to look too large for a county of only 20,000 people. Here's your bombshell. Here's your bombshell, people. Our county has 20,000 people in it, like 22,000. That's it. How do you get the numbers that we're getting ready to hear? The numbers are just too large for this size county. 2022 is the explosion year. This is the year that everything spikes. The monthly reimbursement graph shows a major surge in 2022. What spikes? The drug testing, therapy, case management, addiction screenings, mental health assessments, treatment plans. The interpretation for this is the year that you remember MCHC running addiction services before MCCC took over. The data confirmed my memory. Why it matters. This is also the year of the flood, the court chaos, housing displacement, increased supervision, increased drug court pressure. And the billing reflects that. Listen, think about it. You've got everything that Sabrina was telling us. Remember? Do you remember things that Sabrina said to us about what was happening in the jail and how the jail was run? Lots of other people that have come forward and talked about just different things that we went through here in last several years. Well, the billing reflects all of it. So 2023, sustained high volume. What continues? The drug testing remains extremely high. Therapy remains extremely high. Case management remains extremely high. Now, the interpretation on this one was the pipeline did not slow down after the flood. It stayed very profitable. 2024 is when the decline started to begin. What started to drop? Well, monthly reimbursements start to fall. Addiction-related codes start decreasing. Case management starts slowing down some. Drug testing dips slightly. The interpretation for this part, it aligns with MCCC taking over addiction services. Provider shifts, court clinic restructuring, possible oversight pressure. Well, 2024, if you remember, 2023 is when the FBI investigation was announced. So, of course, you're going to see the numbers show it. This is data, you guys. This is what checking the math is all about. That's how you check the math. So the interpretation for this part, this aligns with what I just said. Okay. So the system begins to unwind in 2024. So the summary of the timeline, 2018-19, the pipeline forms. 2020, COVID. That really kind of let it bake like you put it in an oven. And I think COVID kind of just baked it all right. The volume ramps up in 21. 22 was the explosion year. 23 was that sustained billing, that sustained high billing. They were continuing it. So they got a good 2 years out of their run before the bottom fell out. And then 2024, the decline begins. So this is the classic signature of a closed loop, court-driven, Medicaid-funded addiction pipeline. That's exactly what we are looking at right here, confirmed with Medicaid billing. Let's go up to the beginning of this one. So this is my red flag analysis. This is based on MCHCs down in Whitesburg. This is based on their addiction-related billing patterns in the active Medicaid data, okay? Receipts, data don't lie. This is their own numbers. 2018, foundation year. Here's the red flags. Early presence of addiction treatment codes before public awareness of MCHC's behavioral health expansion. Now, see, MCHC before this time, they did not have a MAT program. They did not have this clinic, this part of their clinic. They didn't have addiction services to this level. They did not have it. They would not. They refused. I was down there in everybody's face back then. Hey, look at this. Look at me. Look what it did for me. Oh, they hated me. They hated seeing me coming. They just laughed at me and made fun of me. And anyway, so it shows there was an early presence of them using these codes, these specific billing codes, before the public ever even knew about their expansion and them starting the MAC clinic. Drug testing was already active. It suggests that court or probation involvement was involvement before formal contracts. Case management billing without visible infrastructure. So they didn't have, like I said, they didn't have a MAP program. So they weren't used to this medically assisted treatment. It was a whole new ball game for the doctors. It was a whole new ball game for the medical world. Do you remember, Mom? It was
Oh,
awful, wasn't it?
yes.
It really was. You couldn't go to the doctor, or I mean, you couldn't go to the emergency room without them, accusing you of being a drug seeker. If you were really hurt, or if you really needed medical treatment, and you have any kind of addiction history, it's awful. But back then, it was even worse. And if you were on Suboxone, they looked at you like you were one of the worst junkies they ever saw. You know, that just blows me away, but I lived it, so I know. The interpretation on this part, the groundwork for a court-linked billing system was already being laid. What did I say? This was all planned. I feel so silly and stupid. I can look back at all of this, put all this data together, honey, and it shows a perfect pattern of what happened. All right. 2019 was the growth and court integration. So the red flags here: sharp increase in therapy and case management codes. Drug testing volume climbs faster than the population growth. Possible coordination with drug court expansion or probation programs. The interpretation, billing pattern aligns with court mandated treatment growth, not organic medical demand. That was around the time, I think, that they were starting to implement the SB 90 program. I don't know what year that was actually put into place, but I know that Judge Mullins was running the pilot program for that. And that was when SOAR was very involved. You've got like some of those videos that I've got on my page of Judge Mullins. Those were SOAR videos. That's where we got that footage from, was from SOAR. So they were very involved. They were at all the meetings, all of the HEAL meetings from Dr. Van Breeding. They were at all of that stuff. Everybody was just so the billing pattern aligns with the court mandated. 2019, it was expanded. So this was the same year. Think about it. 2019. That was the same year that Governor Bevin pardoned the preacher man. Governor Matt Bevin issued a pardon for Michael Clark, ARC's community liaison. Soon after Clark was hand placed into Judge Kevin Mullins' courtroom to pilot the SB 90 program, a second chance initiative that blended drug court supervision with ARC run treatment. 2019. Look at the timeline. The timing of Clark's pardon and courtroom appointment coincides with MCHC's sharp billing increase for therapy and case management codes. SB 90 created a direct court to rehab pipeline, allowing ARC and affiliated providers to bill Medicaid for services ordered by the court. MCHC's own data shows a parallel rise in the H0002 drug alcohol screening code and the T2023 case management code. Both codes used in court mandated programs. The overlap between ARC's liaison role and MCHC's billing surge suggests a cross-organizational coordination rather than independent medical growth. So the interpretation. 2019 marks the formal integration of judicial authority and provider billing. So the SB 90 pilot effectively legitimized the pipeline. Boom! There you go. Nobody cares, do they? Is this not huge? Do you hear me, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. All right. Court. Okay, let's look at the pipeline. You've got court, ARC, MCHC, Medicaid. From this point forward, addiction treatment in Letcher County operated as a closed loop economic system under the banner of rehabilitation. 2019, it's expanded with a public image campaign. So after Clark's pardon and placement into Judge Kevin Mullins's SB 90 courtroom, ARC launched a statewide faith-based recovery campaign. Staff and clients were rebranded as preachers and evangelists, traveling across Kentucky to speak at churches, jails, and rehab centers. In-house residents were bused to many of these events, photographed in large crowds and used to portray standing room only events, revivals. Now, my red flags for all of this: attendance was mandatory for clients under supervision or in ARC housing. Events were presented as voluntary ministry, but participants were court ordered or program required. Photos and press releases created the illusion of grassroots revival while serving as marketing collateral for ARC's expansion. Can you see this, Mom?
Yeah.
I mean, like in your mind, when you think back to the timeline and how all of this is played out, do you see that what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, I feel like I'm losing everybody on this one, but I think it's probably because it's late too. And I've worked on it. All right. So Clark's role blurred religious outreach and paid employment. He was paid as a position. That was his job. That's how he made his money. But yet the image, was we're going to give him a pardon because he's been working as a preacher and he's bringing people to Jesus and or whatever. I don't even know what all they said. This is just that was a rebranding. There have been a lot of collateral. Let me just tell you. Since Michael Clark was pushed out as a preacher man to the people of this community, the most lost and broken among us, I may add. I mean, they just served the sheep up to the slaughter. And once you're in, this system, remember, you can't get out. Okay, back to my red flags. But Clark's role blurred those religious outreach roles and paid employment, raising ethical questions about coercion and representation. Now, Tim Robinson's simultaneous presence on multiple, I can't count them. I can't even find them all, by the way. All of the boards that he sat on, SOAR, regional partnerships, recovery coalitions, positioned ARC as both Tim Robinson's seat on all of these boards, positioned ARC as both a service provider and a policy influencer, consolidating control over the funding and the narrative. Think about it. It all fits too. Every bit of it does. The interpretation. 2019 was not just the year the pipeline expanded. It was the year that the public relations machine kicked in, honey. Faith language became a branding tool, and forced participation turned into visual proof of success. As long as they wanted to stay out of jail, they had to play ball, right? The optics of redemption masked a system of control and profit. You had Ben Fields over there doing all that he was doing, but you also had Michael Clark doing his dirt too. Very similar things, allegedly. But there was no investigation into him. Or was there? What did the feds do whenever they investigated the fraud? Was Michael Clark part of that investigation? "2020 was the COVID year. Here's the red flags for that. Drug testing continues despite the lockdowns. Therapy sessions build at near normal volume while clinics were closed. Case management spikes during shutdowns. The interpretation, impossible utilization during pandemic restrictions. Suggests that billing disconnected from real patient encounters. 2021 was the build-up year. The red flags for it, volume of 80,000. Here's that other part of that bombshell. 80,000. 80,305 to be exact. Drug tests exceeds plausible medical need. How do you have 80,000 drug tests and you only have 22,000 people in your county? That's wild, ain't it, Mom?
Yeah, and then were we in pandemic then?
This
Still-
was 2021.
It was right after it, wasn't it?
The pipeline was fully operational. Court orders was feeding that Medicaid billing. 2022 was the explosion year. The red flags for it, there was a massive surge in all the addiction-related codes. So any code that had anything to do with addiction services, billing for them, they all surged in 22. Drug testing volume reaches 72,800 claims in a county of 20,000 people. Case management reimbursement exceeds $2.4 million
Oh,
for case management. Flood year chaos may have masked a lot of overbilling because that was the year of the flood, remember? Or maybe even duplicate claims. So the interpretation, this was the peak exploitation period before they all got caught. System was running unchecked under emergency conditions. Now, 2023, this was the year that they sustained that high volume. So it was working. In 22, they figured out, hey, this is working. Oh my God, man, we're all going to get rich. We all making the bank, man. It was too good to be true, is exactly what it was. Everybody had their hand in the pot. There was no post-flood decline. None. Continued high drug testing and therapy billing. People were displaced from their homes during that time. A lot of places were closed. I'm sure they didn't have their offices open during the flood. Come on. I'm sure they had to see them somehow. I'm not sure how. Maybe over the phone. I don't know. But that's not the point. We got the numbers, so we know what the numbers are. There was a possible overlap. This 2023 was the year that there would have been a possible overlap between ARC, getting under investigation. So they're pulling back in 23 while MCCC is starting to come in. Remember, MCCC is the one that's over here now with like 5 civil lawsuits on improper billing, retaliation, firing people because they wouldn't play ball. There's no criminal charges against MCCC. There's no criminal charges against Tim Robinson. Not for this. He's got fraud and money laundering charges against him for that Angelica deal, that tax credit deal. He's indicted over that. But that don't have nothing to do with this. Completely separate occurrence and thing. Just totally different. Let me get back over here. Okay. So the interpretation on the 2023 is the pipeline was still profitable and oversight was completely absent or delayed. 2024, here's where we see a change. The decline begins. The red flags, there was a drop in monthly reimbursements. Behavioral health codes start tapering off. Possible provider restructuring or external audit pressure. Yeah, because there was an FBI investigation breathing down their necks. The interpretation, system contraction, meaning it just kind of sucked itself back up. Likely due to the investigation, provider changes, or compliance enforcement. Because it seems like every time you turn around, our lawmaker, somebody is needing another rule added on or changed or something when it comes to the counseling portion of MAT, medically assisted treatment, because that's where the money's at, is in the counseling. All right. So here's just a little table. It doesn't have any lines or anything. So, but just imagine it as a table. You've got your year 2018, the primary red flag, early addiction billing, pre-contract setup, court-linked groundwork. So the groundwork was being laid way back in 2018. You know how, like, with these data centers and the power bills with like Kentucky Power and all that, we find out when people start getting upset over stuff, decisions that these leaders are making, and they get upset and they start, hey, well, what are you doing? Because nobody's paying attention to what the lawmakers are doing. So they're up there in the General Assembly. Howdy doing? They're doing all whatever they do. But it seems like everything's already a done deal by the time we get wind of it, right? Like these data centers, the nuclear, like Kentucky, you might as well get ready. Kentucky is going full. Well, I don't know about full, but Kentucky will be a nuclear state. They will change our complete energy footprint in the state of Kentucky. It's already started. It's already started because they need enough power to be able to power these data centers. And what we've got right now is nowhere near enough energy production. And, we're already in a nightmarish mess over how we pay for our power bills, our energy. Imagine how high they're going to be. So, like, it takes, say, 3 to 5 years to build a data center. Well, it takes 15 years to build a nuclear plant. So, in 5 years, how many data centers are you going to have all over Kentucky? But you don't even have one nuclear plant built yet. So what's going to happen in the meantime? What's going to happen between the time that these data centers are built and the nuclear facility is built? You're going to have about 10 years in between there. Who's going to pay for that? You think them bills aren't good? If they're already $1,500 a month, imagine what they're going to be then. Nobody will be able to afford power, but the people, we can get as mad as we want to. We can get as mad. We can talk about it. We can push back on it. Only if there's enough people to push back. But if these politicians are basically used to, they know what to do. They just wait you out. They just stay silent, or, they may make a small statement and then they just wait you out. They can wait you out. Anyway. All right. So they were laying the groundwork back then. We can see it. And that makes sense because SOAR I think SOAR may have been started in like 2016. So if you think back, you add a couple years in there for that pre-planning, and then the execution. I can see it all. Can you all? All right. So let me go back over here. 2019 was the volume surge, integration of the courts and the rehabs. drug court expansion, 2019. 2020 was COVID overbilling, impossible utilization, remote billing. 2021, the pipeline is formed, and the pattern, this closed loop system, court orders are the possible cause. Move on down to this one, MCHC versus ARC versus MCCC comparison analysis from the years 2018 to 2024. You've got Whitesburg, MCHC, ARC, MCCC, and then the interpretation on the end. And basically, you've got three entities that cover medical, rehab, and mental health domains under non-profit status. Now we enter the other part of it. MCHC is a non-profit organization. Now, ARC is a for-profit. The health department, I'm sure that's a non-profit. Wouldn't you think? I'm sure it ain't for-profit. I'm not sure about how the health department works, but there's very different optics for each of these organizations, but they've all got the same goal: control and profit through Medicaid. When the court system was integrated with the rehabs, you've got drug court, probation, house arrest, and all of those programs utilize the drug tests, especially those quick ones like the throwaway drug screens. How many people have you heard talk about being done wrong using them things? Like, go to court and they'll say, order a drug test, and they'll take them in there and they holler it's positive, and then they just dump it down the toilet before anybody's had a chance to confirm it. Never sent to the lab like it's supposed to be. There's all kinds of complaints and accusations and allegations of situations like that, where who do you think's paying for all of these tests? Well, I don't think Medicaid was created to pay for court-ordered rehab and treatment. I just don't think it's a wonderful thing. Like at the beginning, the concept was great. We had so many people that were struggling with addiction, and you couldn't get them into treatment. We needed vouchers. Operation Unite is the one that started that around here anyway. They would come up with these vouchers to pay for people to go to rehab. But it wasn't a big business back then. Nobody had come in and took it with a business model like Tim Robinson and SOAR did. And SOAR helped him do it. And they're continuing to help others do it today. And you can apply that then in any industry really that you want to. Apply the pattern. What are they benefiting from? ARC was the public face, right? Like I said, the revivals, the testimonies, the second chance branding. But the billing tells the story that psychoeducation counseling, that's the sweet spot. that psychoeducation counseling was huge. There was such a big thing with it. Let's see. Psychoeducation. There was a big old article that I remember. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Alleged abuse and billing for psychoeducation counseling in Kentucky. Recent investigations have focused on ARC, a large Kentucky provider, fraudulently billing Medicaid for psychoeducation services. Psychoeducation is a non-clinical service that provides general information. Are you ready? What do you think psychoeducation's counseling is? Would you think it would be peer support counseling? Would you think it would be maybe counseling with a real counselor or maybe a real psychologist? They had the highest numbers in the country, remember? Like 15 times the highest for psychoeducation counseling. Well, they sure knew how to market it, I can tell you. Let me get back over here. I lost my place on here. The billing tells the truth. So the psychoeducation counseling, it's distinct from therapy or treatment by licensed psychotherapists or social workers. So let me say that again. Psychoeducation is a non-clinical service. Well, if it's non-clinical, why is Medicaid paying for it in the first place? Non-clinical. I don't know what that means. Non-clinical. Provides general information about the recovery process, distinct from therapy or treatment by licensed psychotherapists or social workers. In most states, in Kentucky's region, Medicaid does not even pay for this service. But in Kentucky, it's been heavily reimbursed. Wow. And it won't, I don't think it's gonna. Let's see if this one will open. I don't know when this one was. March 13th, 2026. I think I just found a really, really good one. I just got that on video. Pull mommy off there. How Kentucky's addiction recovery care allegedly committed massive Medicaid fraud. Here we go. Kentucky-based addiction recovery care is under fire in a civil lawsuit for allegedly fraudulently billing Medicaid for a service. A federal database shows that ARC made up to 20% of all payments for that service in the country in a 2-year period. So the FBI announced its investigation of Kentucky-based treatment provider addiction recovery care for potential Medicaid billing fraud in the summer of 2024. So I was wrong on that. It's 2024. But I would just about, with as many connections, political connections, as Tim Robinson had, he knew it he knew it was coming before it was publicly announced. Just like that coach over here across the mountain. He found out they were coming for him and he took off and still ain't never been found. He had enough time to get it planned because somebody told him what was coming. And I would say Tim Robinson was told what was coming too. All right. But in the ensuing 18 months, there was little indication of what the large and influential company was accused of doing. That all changed early this year thanks to a filing in a new federal lawsuit against Addiction Recovery Care, known as ARC, and a new federal database that tracks monthly Medicaid payments. That's what I just used, I think, to providers for each billing code of services that they provide. Yep. See, that's where I found all this. According to a Kentucky Public Radio review of the court filing, a copy of a $27.7 million draft settlement between the Department of Justice and ARC. Federal prosecutors are likely targeting an extraordinary spike in Medicaid payments the company received for performing psychoeducation services, which a whistleblower alleges was fraudulently billed. A review of the new federal database also shows ARC was paid $70 million from Medicaid for this psychoeducation service in 2023 and 2024. That was the part I didn't tell you. $70 million from Medicaid. Psychoeducation. 2023 and 2024. That accounted for 20% of all Medicaid payments under that billing code in the entire country. Psychoeducation is a non-clinical service that provides general information about the recovery process, but separate from actual addiction treatment provided by licensed psychotherapists and certified social workers. Most states in Kentucky's region do not even pay out any Medicaid claims for this service, but payments to addiction treatment providers in Kentucky for psychoeducation absolutely exploded in recent years, quadrupling to $34.7 million from 2020 to 2023. And then quadrupling again in 2024 alone to $165.6 million. Some saw red flags. The Kentucky Association of Health Plans, a trade group of the health insurance companies that administer Medicaid payments for the state, also called managed care organizations, MCOs. They warned state officials in the administration of Governor Andy Beshear in August of 24 that provider spending on non-clinical psychoeducation had inexplicably skyrocketed and urged them to stop payments for the services like other states. But, when Tim Robinson goes to law school with the AG, when he's such big buddies with old Andy Pandy, when you got Hal Rogers remembering who you are. Forgive me, Lord. I mean, all right. There was also the whistleblower who had filed a federal lawsuit in Kentucky in April of 23, coming forward to allege ARC was fraudulently billing psychoeducation services by falsely indicating they were performed by a licensed professional, which garnered a much higher payment. That lawsuit had been sealed until this January when a New York lender sued ARC for allegedly defaulting on an $8 million payment. Filing as an exhibit the draft settlement ARC had shared with it, detailing the alleged psychoeducation billing scheme and the terms of the $27.7 million payment to dismiss the complaint. What? Yeah. So they're just going to pay back $27 million of the, what, $350 million probably altogether? Because if it went from 30-some million to 165 million in 1 year, then altogether they've gotten more than that, right? Do the math. Once the largest addiction treatment provider in Kentucky and owned by a very prominent political donor with both parties. Yeah, he paid both parties. He wasn't just a one-sider. He was an equal opportunity slime ball. ARC has faced a precipitous downfall since the FBI investigation was announced. Since that time, ARC has closed more than half of its facilities and laid off numerous employees. In addition to the aborted attempt to sell off most of its assets to a Florida company in late of 2025. ARC spokesperson did not reply to the story. State officials with Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Services and Family Services and Department of Medicaid Services finally took action in late 2024 to curb the rate of spending on psychoeducation, which by 2025 had plummeted by more than $100 million. However, some state lawmakers in Frankfurt want to do more and want a full reckoning for how the Beshear administration let ARC, yeah, that's what I think so too, and other providers siphon away so much taxpayer dollars in this period for a non-clinical service that is only an education supplement to actual addiction treatment. Well, you know what my question is? Did Michael Clark have anything to do with psychoeducation services? That's what I want to know. Is that what they called what he was doing? Psychoeducation? One of those critics is GOP State Rep Ken Fleming of Louisville, who chairs the Kentucky Medicaid Oversight and Advisory Board that first met last summer. Shown the new federal data on Medicaid payments that ARC received in 23 and 24, Fleming said this should have been a red flag that was caught much earlier. There was no oversight. That's what I've been saying. None. There was no control quality. No, I think they meant quality control measures in terms of monitoring and making sure that these numbers are trending in a normal, understandable way, Fleming said. So to me, it's a direct failure of the administration in not overseeing and managing taxpayers' money. I mean, it's pretty blatant and it's really disturbing. Beth Fisher, a spokesperson for the Kentucky Department of Medicaid Services, says their changes related to psychoeducation billing that were implemented in 25 have worked to reduce spending. She also said the agency never forwarded concerns to federal agencies or law enforcement about psychoeducation billing because no provider misuse was even identified, and therefore no reports were made. Presented with information in the new federal database about ARC's dramatic increase in psychoeducation payments over this period, and asked if there was wrongdoing. Fisher wrote that this matter involves an ongoing Medicaid fraud investigation, referring questions to the Kentucky Attorney General's Medicaid fraud unit. But the Attorney General had to recuse his office from this case. Or from the investigation, anyway. So, how this one billing code for Medicaid exploded in Kentucky is still reverberating in Frankfort, where state lawmakers are currently crafting a 2-year state budget that directs $6 billion to Medicaid benefits, tackling how to credential peer support specialists in the addiction treatment industry and advancing a bill to increase transparency and oversight over Medicaid spending. One bill that is close to clearing the Kentucky Senate was amended this week to do what health insurers had called for 2 years ago, ending all Medicaid payments for psychoeducation services in Kentucky. As lawmakers look to the future, a look back at the past through the new federal database, state records, and past legislative meetings shows the path that got Kentucky and ARC where they are today. ARC received reimbursements to which they were not even entitled. According to the unsigned draft settlement with ARC, the agreement stems from the sealed whistleblower lawsuit. Under the settlement, federal and state officials contend that ARC knew or recklessly disregarded Medicaid billing procedures for psychoeducation and other services from 2018 to 2024 by falsely indicating that they were performed by a licensed professional. As a result of those actions, as a result of those lies, ARC and its affiliates received reimbursements to which they were not entitled. The draft also states that ARC self-disclosed improper payments related to psychoeducation to state Medicaid officials in March of 24, and then self-disclosed additional improper payments to federal prosecutors in December of that year related to other services. Under the terms of the proposed settlement, the complaint alleging ARC submitted false claims for psychoeducation would be dismissed, with ARC paying the federal government $27.7 million. The settlement states the agreement is neither an admission of liability, so he's not admitting guilt or not. Its claims are not well-founded, but instead an effort to avoid a costly and lengthy litigation process. No settlement involving ARC has been announced by the company or state and federal prosecutors to date, but the draft copy in the lawsuit lists the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Kentucky, the Inspector General's Office in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Kentucky Office of the Attorney General and the Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Family Services as parties agreeing to the proposed settlement. Well, I thought he was recused. Why would he be signing on to an agreement for a settlement if he's recused? Asked about the draft settlement, Fisher with the state cabinet replied that Kentucky's DMS has not signed off on any settlement involving ARC. Now, the timing of the whistleblower's lawsuit in 23 lines up with when ARC's Medicaid payments for psychoeducation services started rising. According to the new federal database that breaks down, that's the one we just looked at, a new kind of federal database shows ARC as a national outlier. This February, the centers, okay, so I don't have to read all that. Let's see. Noted after the launch of the new database that there were some limitations, such as not identifying where the services were performed, only where the payments were sent, and questions about how it was compiled. So sometime before the end of that month, HHS took the database offline with a message that it is under construction, but not before several programmers downloaded and shared the full database on their own websites. One created a visualization tool to explore the data by billing code and provider, which Kentucky Public Radio used to compile numbers for this story. The data shows ARC's Louisa headquarters starting off receiving no payments for psychoeducation services in 2018. A big goose egg, but gradually increased to more than $500,000 per month at the beginning of 2021. Can you just imagine what they thought? I bet they thought they had hit the mother lode. They hit the pot of gold, didn't they? That's what they thought. Oh, yeah. They hit the pot of gold. ARC's psychoeducation payments would remain steady for much of 22 at more than $700,000 per month. But this is when payments under this billing code at the national level briefly skyrocketed, quadrupling to $32.7 million that December. The database suggests that much of this brief national spike in 22 was due to psychoeducation payments in Arizona, where massive Medicaid fraud was uncovered a year later, along with the discovery that Medicaid payments had grown 5 times larger in the span of just 2 years. What is going on? ARC's psychoeducation payments started rising at a faster pace by November of 22, when they also started going to ARC's Owingsville treatment facility. By March of 23, ARC Owingsville received $1.9 million under the billing code, cracking $2 million that month when combined with the Louisa office. Look there. Medicaid payments to ARC for psychoeducation services monthly from 22 to 24. The solid light blue line is ARC Louisa. So you see it right here. And ARC Owingsville would be this dark one. Look there. And then ARC Total is the dotted line. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. ARC's total payments for psychoeducation services cracked $3 million in July of 23, then reached a high of $4.4 million that December. According to the CMS database, those December payments to ARC amounted to a third of Medicaid's entire psychoeducation payments at the national level. With the Owingsville office no longer receiving payments in 24, ARC's Louisa office averaged more than $3 million per month in payments. for psychoeducation services through that November. When the database concluded, the company's total haul under this billing code for the available data in 24 was just shy of $40 million. Holy Toledo. Are you all hearing this? Is this not awful? This is, yeah, big, big, big boom. Sure is. 22. So 2024 was just shy of $40 million. 22.4% of Medicaid's entire spending for psychoeducation that year. Psychoeducation billing changes and concern from MCOs. The explosion of those payments began in 23, followed closely with changes to billing made by the state that year, which were not addressed again by the cabinet until late 24. Of course not. He was their buddy. They were all making money. But the signs that something very unusual was happening with this specific billing code were all there. From an unheralded cabinet study to a private letter from health insurance companies warning the state that action needed to be taken. State records show that Kentucky altered its Medicaid fee schedule in 23 to significantly increase the provider rate for some psychoeducation services. How does that not show more than one person involved, right? How does this not show complicity, planning? I don't know how it don't. Which was tiered based on who was delivering the service in its 15-minute units. At its highest tier, physicians delivering services would bring a payment of $55.20 per unit, whereas the lowest tier, peer support specialists, would bring in $8.61. I told you, didn't I? They pay the peer support $12 an hour, but then they're going to go bill for $180 an hour or whatever the number is. Look at that. That's a $40 difference. With this, $55.20 is what they're going to bill for saying they had a doctor or a licensed physician. Whereas if they were only seen by peer support, they would only get paid that little amount. Well, I guarantee you, they're seeing the peer support people, like the IOP, the outpatient, that whole program that works with Letcher County Court. They all run their own thing. It's all run by peer support specialists. The people whose name is actually over the program, like that Chrissy girl, the Judge Kevin Mullins is whatever she was. She's supposed to be over that program. Her name is over it. She's supervisor or whatever. But if you call down there and try to talk to her, allegedly she says, I don't have anything to do with it. I don't know nothing. They run their own thing down there. You got a question, you need to go talk to them. But isn't your name over it? Now, they let peer supports run it. But what are they all billing for? Are they billing that a peer support is the one seeing these people? Or are they billing saying that old Doc, what's his name, saw these people? I think we're going to know the answer to that question without having to say it out loud. as Kentucky Medicaid payments to ARC and other behavioral health providers, other ones, were quietly skyrocketing. In May of 24, the whoever issued a report to an advisory committee showing that Kentucky was an outlier with other states when it came to making any payments for psychoeducation services. The multi-state rate study showed that Kentucky was the only state among the 10 in the region to reimburse providers for psychoeducation as a separate service. On July 30th of 24, two ARC executives testified before an interim legislative committee, and they pleaded for help, explaining that 3 of Kentucky's 6 MCO companies had suddenly cut their rates by 15 to 20%, with one insurer announcing they would no longer cover any addiction services at ARC by that fall. Though it would not be reported until 2 days later, that same day, the FBI posted an announcement online that it was investigating ARC for potentially fraudulent Medicaid billing, calling on any patients or employees with information to contact them. According to a letter obtained by Kentucky Public Radio, this is when the Kentucky Association of Health Plans made their case for how psychoeducation spending was out of control and needed to be stopped. KAHP CEO Thomas Stevens sent the August 13th letter to then Cabinet Secretary Eric Friedlander, noting that Kentucky was one of only a few states to cover these psychoeducation as a standalone service, and that those payments were abnormally large. Stevens noted that one MCO reported paying an average daily rate of $290 for non-clinical psychoeducation, while paying an average daily rate of only $76 for clinical psychotherapy. Clinical psychotherapy is therapy done by a licensed therapist. So, I mean, 290, 76, that's what, 3 times? Stevens wrote that with this payment imbalance, providers are incentivized to provide the non-clinical service at significantly greater volume compared to the clinical service, which results in worse health outcomes for Medicaid members. Noting that psychoeducation claims had more than doubled from 21 to 23, while costs had more than tripled, Stevens called for eliminating coverage of psychoeducation. If not fully eliminating it, he said the Beshear administration should put strict per day and per year caps on these payments and prohibit service delivery by paraprofessionals. In a November 1st letter to providers several months later, Commissioner Lisa Lee announced changes to how psychoeducation would be billed starting in January of 25. The service would still be covered, of course, but the rate for individual patients was cut by 15%, of course. It also created a new group rate for up to 12 individuals that was 25% lower than the individual rate. Writing that psychoeducation is support to and an adjunct to actual clinical care provided by a clinician. Lee added that peer support specialists and uncertified workers cannot deliver psychoeducation services. Lawmakers, AG's office, catch wind of the spending spree after the fact. Perhaps the first public glimpse of just how much this spending had increased in Kentucky was in February of 25 budget subcommittee meeting, though no one in the meeting appeared to notice. On Lee's PowerPoint presentation to the lawmakers, One slide showed that psychoeducation spending by MCOs had increased from $40 million in the 23 fiscal year to $168 million in the 24 fiscal year. None of the committee members asked about the jump. However, those payments were on the mind of at least one lawmaker that 25 session. House Bill 695 passed in March to restore pre-pandemic prior authorization for behavioral health services, an effort to contain potentially wasteful Medicaid spending. ARC was lobbying that session for certain exemptions or required notifications for the prepayment reviews. Senator Chris McDaniel, the GOP budget chairman from Ryland Heights, noted that when the final version of HB 695 passed out of committee, it stripped out references to psychoeducation, which the original version would have exempted from prior authorization. We pay for these services for people to be helped, not for folks to make large profits, McDaniel warned. And if you are finding yourself in the space of questioning what you're doing right now, I would argue that you should probably change. Don't make us find you, because it will not be pleasant as a whole. In December, just weeks ahead of the 26th legislative session, two leaders in Kentucky Attorney General's Office of Medicaid Fraud and Abuse Control gave lawmakers another window into the rise and fall of Medicaid spending on these services and where potential fraud may exist. Executive Director Matthew Kleinhardt. He presented a chart to the Medicaid Oversight and Advisory Board that showed payments broken down by behavioral health billing codes for the calendar years 2020 through 25. These payments for individuals quadrupled from $8.2 million in 2020 to $34 million by 23, and then quadrupled again in just 1 year, $163 million. So here's that chart: Kentucky Medicaid payments for behavioral health by service type. Psychotherapies on the bottom. And then you've got peer support, therapeutic behavior, and then psychoeducation. You see it on top. But Kleinhardt noted that individual psychoeducation spending did drop dramatically in 25 following the changes instituted by the cabinet, falling to just $14 million. However, Kleinhardt added that it appears that those who may be committing fraud have moved to other areas, as the new group billing for psychoeducation went from just $2 million in 24 to $38 million in 25. So they're just seeing, they just changed, they moved. And do you remember, those of you who know ARC and who have followed that, do you know where they moved to? A lot of them, a lot of facilities I saw were being opened up in other states, like Virginia, West Virginia, places like that. So ARC is, I don't know if it would be under the same name. I thought it was, but who knows? They could just open it up under another business, for all I know. I've really hurt my arm. Without mentioning ARC by name, Democratic Senator Karen Berg of Louisville asked the attorneys how much of the 24 leap in psychoeducation spending is a function of the incorrect billing that was going on in this state by one of our larger mental health providers. Zakaria, the criminal division chief, answered that she couldn't directly comment on anything that could or could not be pending as far as an investigation. Kentucky Public Radio asked the cabinet for a record of the total Medicaid payments by the state for these services from 22 through 25, as well as totals that went to ARC. After a week, the cabinet said an open records request would be needed to turn over that data, which is pending. ARC in the background as the General Assembly tackles Medicaid. Kentucky's massive increase in Medicaid spending on addiction treatment is one of the motivating factors behind House Bill 2, sponsored this session by Fleming. The bill would implement the federal mandates of the Big Beautiful Bill passed by Congress last summer, such as work reporting requirements for those on Medicaid and add new co-payments for patients to receive certain health services. But a large portion of its focus is on adding oversight and transparency of Medicaid spending. The HB2 transparency measures include an online dashboard for the public to monitor Medicaid spending and outcomes, as well as new audits. Fleming said that the uncontrolled surge in psychoeducation spending in 23 and 24 and his difficulty to get certain numbers from the Beshear administration is why those transparency measures are in House Bill 2, making sure the activities are upfront and honest in terms of how they're being applied. Some Democratic lawmakers fear the bill, as well as the current version of the GOP budget bill goes too far in making it harder for people with lower incomes to access Medicaid coverage instead of taking on big companies who were trying to profit off the cheating system. I think this is a way that they're punishing our people and accusing them of fraud when it really exists more on the provider side, said Democratic Rep. Mary Lou Marjan of Louisville. Democrats, including Beshear, have also criticized the Republican budget bill for spending $220 million less on Medicaid benefit payments than what the Beshear administration projects will be needed for the next 2 years. Well, I don't trust their spending. If they would make better decisions on what they spend their money on, like we could completely cut out all of the counseling, all of the mandated counseling for the MAT program. You could cut every bit of it out. There ain't nobody on those programs that are new to substance abuse. Ain't none of them. If they need help, they're going to seek it out. If you need to talk to somebody, you're going to talk to somebody, whether it's your church. There's plenty of services, plenty of volunteers, plenty of them. No way should they be spending that much money. But if they were to cut that out, all their friends would lose that money. And they've shook a lot of hands, made a lot of deals to keep all that in place. Okay, ARC's troubles have also come in context of House Bill 470, an attempted fix to a bill from 2 years ago, requiring peer support specialists in addiction treatment to receive a state credential by the beginning of 26. HB 470 would delay its implementation for another year, as just 101 of the nearly 17,000 specialists have qualified for the new credential as of last month. Though it passed the House easily, HB 470 stalled at the Senate committee hearing in February and was not voted on, as some name-dropped ARC as reason for skepticism. Part of the problem that we've seen, I think, particularly with ARC, has been an abuse of the peer recovery model, McDaniel said. It appears to me that this does not really address that so much as it extends the amount of time that abuse can occur. Sarah Vaughn, who works with peer support specialists and testified on the bill, also noted that ARC executives testified in committee for the peer support bill 2 years ago, as well as HB 470 when it was in the House this year. Why are we pushing for a bill that ARC created when they are under an FBI investigation? Vaughn said. Well, heck, you think somebody had some common sense? It looks bad. Everything about it looks bad. Why is the focus not on regulating the facilities becoming more stringent, having stop guards in place with Medicaid before it gets out of hand? Jennifer McMinn, the Vice President of Recovery for Volunteers of America, Mid-States, told Kentucky Public Radio, the Louisville-based addiction treatment provider, has never billed separately for psychoeducation, but the non-clinical services that peer support specialists provide is vital to the recovery process. A licensed clinical social worker for 2 decades, McMinn fears that peer support specialists, the recovery organizations that ethically use them, and patients who need their services may be the ones who end up being punished for the alleged sins of ARC. If people were auditing ARC the way that they should have been, this shouldn't have happened. And then we wouldn't be in this predicament, McMinn said. It shouldn't be the profession that gets put into jeopardy because of this. It should be that agency. A new version of HB 470 cleared Senate committee with little discussion. The new version would do what MCOs called for 2 years ago, mandating that a Kentucky Medicaid program shall not provide coverage for individual or group psychoeducation services. One of the most basic explanations, which is greed, shown in the new federal data, there is no rational explanation for it other than one of the most basic human explanations, which is greed. There are people in this world who don't care how they make their money. And we have people in the state who have figured out how to make addicts big money. And they've enriched themselves, said McDaniel, who questioned whether the massive state spending on treatment over the past decade has made any perceivable dent in Kentucky's addiction woes. He added that to watch those organizations be paraded to the State of the Commonwealth address, amongst many other things, was very disheartening. I feel that way too. ARC owner Tim Robinson was singled out for praise by Bashir in his January 24 State of the Commonwealth address, 2 months after he was reelected, with financial help from Tim Robinson. Through 2 of his low-profile businesses, Robinson gave $195,000 in 22 and 23 to the Democratic Governors Association, the political committee that spent $19 million on ads to elect Bashir. Following the 23 general election, Robinson contributed $29,000 to Bashir's inauguration fund. It's okay. Robinson was also a big donor to help elect Kentucky Attorney General Russell Coleman, his big buddy, that year. He gave $20,410 to a PAC that spent $70,000 on efforts to elect Coleman, while he and other employees of ARC also combined to contribute more than $10,000 to Coleman's campaign. They all take turns passing around the money bucket, you know. As first reported by Kentucky Public Radio after the FBI investigation of ARC was announced in 24, both Coleman and the top deputy in his office have recused themselves from any investigation into ARC. All right. There we go. Now, that is basically what we got here. And I'm going to go ahead and close this one out because we've been on here for 2 hours. Sorry. I did a lot of work on this. All right, guys. We will see you all tomorrow. I'm wore out. So tired. All right. Thank you, Jesus, for another day being able to come together in your name, Lord. I praise you, Jesus. I thank you, Lord. I thank you for everything you do in my life. I pray, Lord, that you just forgive me for my sins and go with me tonight. Go with us all tonight, Lord, and bring us back tomorrow safely at the appointed time. We pray for the lost tonight, Jesus. Not all of us, ain't none of us promised even tomorrow. So I pray for your edge of protection, Lord. I plead your blood over us, and we'll wake up in the morning. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. I praise you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out, Girl Scout.
Can't hide from hillbilly crime. You can't hide from hillbilly crime. You may not know that there's a crew in town. The head hillbillies are making their rounds. Small town whispers loud and clear. The sheriff shot the judge in his chambers chair.
Sheriff got a secret he won't keep. Judge shot dead in his disbelief. A lot of people have some stories to tell. Dog passed away, get the sound of a shotgun shell.
All the secrets spill on down. Voices loud in this old town. From the courthouse to the ground. Rumors fly and they can't be bound.
Neighbors hide behind their blinds. Whisper tales of troubled minds. Skeletons covering the mountainside. A treacherous reality in the pines.
Winter reveals the hidden lies. Moonlight couldn't match the cries. Shadows caught in sunlit skies. There's no cover, no disguise.